Hello and welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. With the pandemic, a lot of events went virtual and many more new virtual events sprung up after the conference industry, like many others, was decimated by COVID-19. We so often hear about businesses and even conferences needing to be better and more innovative, especially as the formats of so many webinars and Zooms quickly has become stale. But if you're a speaker like me and like a really well-known keynoter like our guest today, then the need to be innovative in your presentations is just as crucial and really key at this point, just like it is with the conference medium itself. Andrew Davis is a best-selling author and an incredibly popular keynote speaker who previously built and sold a digital marketing agency, produced for NBC, and worked for the Muppets. And on this episode, we'll discuss the state of speaking on stage and also turning it up in virtual presentations, the loyalty loop and the curiosity factor, the Presidential Commission on Russian Relations, Jason Bourne, lightboards, Caribbean pumpkins, black tip reef shark migrations, and one of my tattoos, Tony Robbins, Miss Piggy, Al Roker, and a lot more. So let's tune in to a high-energy keynoter with a high-energy shark who likes to keynote as well on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. For those of us in the world who haven't seen you delivering that high energy on a stage or on a virtual conference, break down quickly, if you will, your career to date.
Yeah, sure. So I started in the television business, actually. So I worked for a local television station in Boston right out of college, and then I did work for CNN and Fox as a freelancer, and then I got a job working for the Today Show. So I was a producer for the Today Show. Then I got my dream job at the Jim Henson Company working with the Muppets. And then I, like in the first dot-com boom back in the 1990s, late 1990s, I ended up leaving the television business and working in marketing for a bunch of startups. And then in 2001, I started my own agency with a journalist, a guy named Jim Costco. And we built that company until 2012 when we sold it. And at that point, I wrote a book, started speaking all over the world, and to this day, I just write books and speak. It's really a fortunate position to be in. It's lots of fun.
No kidding. Yeah, well, it's a fantastic journey so far. I also read something on your speaker packet that I had to ask you about that just did make sense to me. Presidential Commission on Russian Relations for the State Department from 2010 to 2012.
Yep. Yeah.
Are you Jason Bourne, the speaker?
Yes. I'm like the diplomatic equivalent of Jason Bourne exactly. With less running. Yeah. My fighting skills are just not up to par. Yeah, it was really interesting. The State Department at the time under the Obama administration was actually trying to put together a commission that would basically had a series of counterparts from the United States that were equals to people in Russia, and the goal was try to help bring a more open and kind of less agenda driven, should we say, media program to the Russian kind of public. And so over the course of 2 years, I mean, to be honest, it was a really eye-opening experience. In the corporate world, if you want to have a meeting with someone, you put a quick agenda together, you send it over, you sit down for an hour and you have a great meeting, and then you say, what are the next steps? And you follow up, and things move pretty quickly. In the world of diplomatic relations, it's like the complete opposite. It's like, let's discuss the agenda for a few months before we send it to them, make sure we're not offending anyone. We'll water it down until we're really not talking about anything. Then we'll send it over. And it was a pretty disappointing experience for me because it was a really eye-opening understanding of how the government works and how international relations works. But the best part that came out of it was I met some really great and smart and talented people on both sides, Russian media people and people from the United States. So it was really, really interesting, spending 2 days together every quarter talking about Russian relations and media relations was really fun.
No kidding. So, well, did you get any trips as part of it to Moscow?
No, ironically, ironically, it ended up always coming to the United States. Yeah. The plan was to do that, but as diplomatic relations are, it never worked out. But that was one of the reasons I was excited about it.
No kidding. Well, it looks fantastic. Talk about a differentiator. So in 2020, I was going to get to say hello to you at Content Marketing Conference where we were both speaking.
I know that
You
would
had
have been
this
awesome.
tiny session called a keynote, which is I think for the smaller speakers. I did a really
That's
boring
right.
session on podcasting, but your
I'm
keynote,
sure it was not,
yeah,
Ken. I'm gonna listen to it.
oh, don't do it while driving. So, your presentation though was fantastic, and it really made me think about your life as a speaker. You did a 45-minute TV show on well, not steroids, but I mean you did a lot of this just from your home. But there were so
Yeah.
many angle changes. This is a ton of editing. I mean, this was a
Oh yeah.
fantastic. And so, as we start to think about what's going on post COVID-19 and your speaking career, I mean, is this something that you just jumped into and knew how to do to deliver that kind of keynote presentation? Because not everybody does. I mean, I told you
Yeah.
when I did Content Marketing Conference, I talked over a bunch of slides.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well, I mean, ironically, for a long time, I must have done 300 or 400 webinars in the last
sure.
10 years. So webinars are not necessarily new to me, and every time I finished a webinar, I
Mm-hmm.
would always say to myself, look, wouldn't webinars be great if they were better? And I didn't really, I didn't know how. I was like, oh, when I have time, I'll think about how I could make a better webinar. Maybe later, next week, I'll write that down on my to-do list, and I'll think about webinars. And I just never had the time or the inclination. And all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit and we were stuck at home and all my travel got canceled and a bunch of my events that were in-person events turned to virtual events, just like the Content Marketing Conference, that was actually one of the first ones where I got the call and they said, okay, we're going to do virtual. And I thought, well, hey, we have 4 weeks before we need to deliver this. So in 4 weeks, how can I reinvent what a webinar is? And yeah, so I literally said, let's think as pie high in the sky as I can. Like, what if Alton Brown made a marketing show for
Sure.
45 minutes? And I sat down and watched a bunch of Alton Brown episodes, and
How funny.
then sat down and wrote the script and started shooting. And I literally shot every single day for 2 weeks. And
Wow.
funnily enough, the reason we're talking is my editor Sean
Yeah.
is a really talented guy,
Super guy.
and so he and I have been going back and forth editing, these webinars slash virtual keynotes slash whatever people call them, every single day since the pandemic started. So it's been really, really fun, but it is a ton of work, probably more than I realized, and it has been kind of exhausting. But what's rewarding is the moment it goes live and people tune in to find out that it's not just another webinar with slides and a talking head.
Mm-hmm.
That I get hundreds of emails and social media messages saying this is amazing. So it makes the work worth it, I think.
No kid. Well,
I
you go
don't know.
from cutting up a Caribbean pumpkin,
Yes, calabazas.
calabaza, yeah,
I didn't even know what it was until I needed one.
yeah, to a fishing pole, to sitting
Hmm.
in a it looked like a hotel room on the
Yeah.
bed, and then
Yep.
in your den. But it was just so many edits. Look, I've edited a ton of TV shows. I've edited a
Yeah.
ton of commercials, a
You
ton of
know what it's
YouTube
like.
videos. Oh, it's a beast. And if you filmed for 2 weeks, and Sean or you edited it, then that was an extra 3 weeks of editing
Yeah,
to pull
exactly.
that
That's what
much
it feels
content
like.
minimum. It's
Yeah, I was
crazy.
trying to. Each segment is between 5 and 7 minutes long, I think. About, and so yeah, I should try to add it up. How much time between Sean and we spend shooting and editing these things and writing them. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't. That might be just too depressing. But it is really, really fun, and I have enjoyed it. And to be honest, it's been weird because every time I think of a shooting location, like you said, it looked like it was in a hotel room. That just happens
Just
to
your
be
bedroom, right?
one of the bedrooms in my
Right.
house. Yeah. So it's
The one for
it's
the relatives that come over.
yeah, exactly. So it's the relative hotel room, but what's weird is as soon as you're constricted and constrained to the house, everything looks like a shooting opportunity. I think I even shot in my bathroom
Yeah,
for that one. It's like it's
the
yeah.
brush.
That's right. That's, yeah, the Aura brush story. So yeah, so it's been great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm so glad to hear you enjoyed it too. That really makes a
Oh no,
difference.
100%. And it's it's a challenge to all speakers. Again, when
Hmm.
you look at where we're pivoting with speaking, how are you looking at this as within your own career? Because your whole job now has been as speaker and author.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can break the time off to write a book in a different way, sitting down with a laptop or a pen or however you do it, inscribe it.
Yeah.
But when you're doing a show like this, I mean, you're putting on a show. It's not a presentation, it's a show. So, how are you re-looking at your own speaking career as to how much time go forward you're going to be on stage all the time versus how much you're going to do in presentations like this?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I look at it. I think I look at it from two perspectives. You know, one part of me says, "Hey, it's nice. This is the longest I've been home in 7 years,
Yeah.
according to my wife." Uh, so she's counting. Trust me. So for me, it's been nice to be home. To be honest, I've gotten to a really good routine. The idea of doing more virtual events like this, and webinars that still challenge me and are exciting, seems fun, and I'd love to do it. And I do see an increased demand for that right now. And I'm hoping that because the experience is different, that I can continue to do that moving forward. I think, on the other side of the coin, I one of the reasons I love speaking is meeting the people.
Absolutely.
And I learn so much when I go to these events. I spoke at an event in Toronto recently that was for, mom and pop furniture retailers. And, when I showed up at first, I was like, I'm not going to learn anything from these people. And, like 15 minutes into breakfast, I'm just sitting next to a guy who I'm just fascinated by, and he's transformed his business, and he's got all this great ideas and insight and stories to share. And I realize, and I'm reminded constantly, that everyone has a story to tell, and there's so much to learn. So I think I personally don't get the satisfaction out of the webinars that I do speaking. And so, if somebody said, "Hey, tomorrow you won't be able to speak anymore, live anywhere, you're going to be constrained to just virtual events," I'm not sure, to be honest, how long I'd continue doing just virtual events. I don't get as much out of them as I do the in-person
Oh
experience.
God, no. No, I don't either. I mean, just going out to a table, and I like
Yeah,
doing it before. I like sitting with people before
me
and getting
too.
to know
Yeah.
them. It really sort of deflates anybody's, I don't know,
Hmm.
it breaks down as many barriers for them as it does for me,
Absolutely.
and maybe they hate me less after after they've
They
gotten to
don't.
know
I'm
me
sure they
before.
love you.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I've got a lot of energy too, and I'm a little erratic and all over the place. Sometimes I've warned people having ADHD and OCD that I'm gonna, if anybody yells squirrel, I'm gonna accidentally jump off the stage and forget why I did it.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
do like to just to meet people, and that's such a there's such a value of being able to connect. And I will say that one of the things I've noticed really with a lot of the virtual presentations, including yours, is regardless of how good yours was, and it was excellent, the fact that I could pause and again pull myself away to run downstairs, grab a cup of
Yeah.
coffee, do whatever. It
Yeah.
was disturbing in a way because
Yeah.
it's like going to the movie theater and being plugged into Star Wars 48 versus
Yeah.
watching it on demand or streaming it or Blu-ray or whatever and being able to pause it and go take the dog outside. It kind of takes away a lot of the experience of it. So I'm always interested to see who's doing what with speaking now because you're gonna see a lot of people just get out because they don't know what to do, whether to either step it up as a virtual or they're just scared of what's going to happen with conferences go forward.
Yeah.
So
Well, I do think, so the content marketing conference, the one we've been referring to, that one was a fully on-demand event,
right.
meaning, like, you showed up on the day, and everything was already there. I did another event last week on Tuesday, I think, last week. For a company in the United Kingdom called Atomic, and they did a full 1 day live event.
Right.
And even though I think every session actually was pre-produced and pre-recorded, they were streamed live. And I think you're bringing up the difference. Like when it's on demand, and there's no chat and you're not watching it with other people, it's not
Agreed.
like a watch party, quote unquote. You do feel like you can just pause it, run, go downstairs, take the dog outside, come back in, get a cup of coffee, and then hit play again. When it's live, you can see and feel the momentum. And it's kind of like an out of body experience for a speaker, because I was in the live chat while it was being broadcast live. So it's kind of like you're watching what people are thinking while they're watching you live, and you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so it was really eye opening. Actually, I got a lot of insight into how people think when they're watching it, which was great. And I ended up taking tons of screenshots of the comments to help me kind of reframe the next round of these webinars. So it was fun. It was really fun. And I think the choice to be either live, even if it's pre-recorded, or completely on demand, will change the way people attend and consume the event.
Agreed, agreed. And a lot of the apps I've participated in one that was like that, where it was just pre-recorded, and it was sort of different. I don't even know if I knew when it started. It just didn't. The
Yeah.
experience was great with the host. She was fantastic. The
Okay.
Where you're sort of plugged in as a speaker, where some speakers, and I've heard you speak about this, I think on Jay's show, how you like to meet the people as well. It just uh, you just miss on that a lot, and so I hope
Yeah.
that's not the future. It does fill in the blanks, and it's a lot of fun to help get the word out to a bigger audience than what
Hmm.
necessarily would do. But there's just so much more of a powerful connection that you can make with somebody face to face. So
Totally.
how did you go from speaking after writing your book to being a full-time paid speaker? How was that transition? How did you bridge that into
Yeah.
just living on the edge all the time?
Well, I actually started speaking long before I left Tipping Point. So
Sure.
the agency I was running, we were using speaking as a lead gen tool
Exactly.
for the business. So I was speaking, like, by 2012, I was probably speaking 10 or 15 times a year as a lead gen tool. Um, and I was getting a lot of referrals for it. People would say, "You spoke at this event. You were great. We'd love to have you at this event." And at the time, we were making the decisions on whether to speak or not, based on whether it was valuable for the business. So as soon as we sold Tipping Point, and I took some time off, and then as I was thinking, what should I do next, I was still getting calls and emails from people saying, "Hey, I saw you speak last year at event Y. Would you like to speak at event X?" And I thought, well, this is a good thing to do to keep me busy right now. So I started taking some of those events as paid events. And then, as the demand increased, I just kept increasing my fee. I mean, for me, basically, my goal for every event is to get 3 speaker referrals. I call them stage side leads. So every time I speak, my goal is to have 3 stage side leads, which means I get a new lead within 72 hours of speaking, for another event. And because it, like, essentially, you end up with this like compounding tree of new referrals every time you speak. And if you just raise your fee every time you get a new referral, even just a little bit, $50, $500, $100, all of a sudden you're making a pretty good living from speaking. So I'm actually working on a super secret project just for speakers, all about how to build a business by thinking this way as a speaker. So yeah, it's been fun to kind of it ended up becoming 50 gigs a year, only only because I kind of got fascinated with the business of speaking,
Hmm.
and I started building my own software for
Oh
speakers, and
wow.
started like analyzing all the data that you get from speakers. So it's been a really fun journey.
Why are you doing some non-paid gigs? And I saw that on your site where you
Yeah.
on occasion do a non-paid gig. What's the value for you then? Just the
Yeah, I
referrals?
do. I do 9 free gigs a year. Well, a very specific type of referral. So I'm either looking to get into a new fractal or a niche that I've never spoken in before. So let's say somebody inquires from, the car dealership, world, and I've never spoken in car dealerships before, if they say, hey, we would love to have you, speak as a free speaker, and they express some interest, I'll look at that and say, wow, I've never spoken at car dealers before. If I can open up that tree, that branch of the speaking tree to me, it could be very valuable. So let me go do one for free and expose my ideas to a new audience. So that's one reason. Another reason is, just purely philanthropic. There are lots of events that don't have the budget, that are total nonprofits, but they're representing things that I'm passionate about or interested in, like libraries, anything to do with reading or creativity or thinking. And so I'll do those with no, no expectation that it's going to lead to anything bigger, although sometimes it does. And then, the third is essentially as a favor to someone who's driven business my way in the past. So I've done that fairly often, a few times a year. It's usually someone who's referred me 3 or 4 times to an event that's been paid, and I really feel like I owe them.
You as a speaker, as you made that transition to really going non-paid to paid, did the book help you deliver that much more interest in you becoming a paid speaker, or do you think it necessarily extra helped, or didn't do anything at all, or sort of?
No, it doesn't. Basically, I think there are three ways that event organizers evaluate the value of a speaker. So they look at fame, entertainment, and expertise. And so, does a book help? Yes, it probably helps, but it's not the most important thing. Basically, Kenneth, if you break it down like this, like there's fame, entertainment, and expertise. Those are the 3 main categories that every event organizer looks at. In the fame category, if they were comparing you, Kenneth, versus me, Andrew, and they said, hey, Shark doesn't have a book, but Andrew has a book, I might get 1 or 2 extra points for that book, right? Mm-hmm. But if all of a sudden I had a New York Times bestselling book that's been on the New York Times bestselling list for 30 weeks versus you, I might get 10 extra fame points for that. You see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, let's say they get down to entertainment and they say, wow, Shark is so much more entertaining than Andrew. He's hilarious. He's so much fun. He delivers a great experience. We're going to give him a 10. And they watch my video and they give me a 1. At the end of the day, the score at the bottom might be that you win out. So for me, people have never hired me to speak because I had a book. They're hiring me because they believe I'm, I deliver tremendous value. I'm entertaining. It's a real experience. And for a lot of event organizers, I'm famous enough in the category that they're, looking for attendees for their events, that I'll bring some people to the event.
Exactly.
But if for people out there that are thinking, hey, I should write a book, I'll get more speaking gigs, I think it's very rarely the fact that it actually drives new speaking gigs your way, unless it's a breakout hit.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's just a really interesting dichotomy when you look at speakers. And I don't know why I'm even thinking about him, but I'm a big fan of his work as a speaker. But Dan Pink. Dan Pink is a brilliant writer. He's a great speaker. I've seen him speak. He does not come up there and just do a bunch of crazy high energy stuff.
Yeah,
he's not making fun of himself, looking at somebody yelling squirrel like I do. But whether listen to him or me, I'm listening to him any day of the week. But it's interesting to see how many speakers have written books, and that has helped launch, or maybe not help launch, but help propel them into at least an initial speaking gig. But it's the mechanism, the way that you deliver it, which is what keeps it going on and on and on. So how do you take then, looking forward, with, you talk about the production that you're doing with these virtual speaking gigs where it takes you 2 weeks, for example, to film one and then put together this 45-minute presentation that gets edited. How much of that are you going to incorporate maybe into your on-stage events? Is there a value to adding in a lot more of that sort of video part that I know you tailor make for each one?
Yeah.
Is that something you're going to do as well?
I don't know. You know what it has in the last few days, I have been thinking about what happens with, like, basically one of the events that I did a virtual event for, they immediately after the event happened, they called me and said, we're doing the same event next year, but we're planning to do it real life and in person. And we want to have you do a live presentation instead of the virtual one. And I immediately had a little bit of trepidation. I was like,
Yeah,
wow,
exactly.
this is a whole show. I don't know what the live version would be. So I don't think I'd incorporate more video necessarily, but I do think it's helped me rethink how I can treat the live version as an offshoot of a virtual version. Do I need different kinds of set pieces?
Yeah.
Can I actually use the cameras that are at the venue to deliver an experience that feels more like the show? Things like that have kind of popped into my mind. So
Well, you got to bring a
I'm a big
pumpkin and a
believer that,
fishing pole.
yeah, exactly. That's right. I can bring a pumpkin. We can carve the pumpkin and do some vomiting and
Exactly.
fish on the side of the stage. So, and I think I used the light board in that one. Did I use the light board in
Yes,
the
you
content
did.
marketing car?
It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
So I usually do draw in the Curiosity Factor keynote. I draw on a big 4x8 piece of foam core, and that's why I built the light board, because so I could do it. Now I'm thinking, I wonder if there's a way to do the light board live, because it is pretty impressive and kind of fun. So, I really feel I'm one of those people that believes in Marshall McLuhan saying that the medium is the message. And so, I feel like for TV/webinars, we should deliver an experience that's designed specifically for that medium, and uses the best of what that medium can offer to create an intimate experience. Whereas when you're on stage, I feel like it's very different medium. You got to play to the entire audience. It's a one-to-many kind of experience. You're a small person on a big stage a lot of times. And how can we make better use of the space now is something I'm really considering, given the kind of exercise I've been through with this.
Well, I agree, and I think it's really interesting to see and all the reason I've been asking this is when you look at paid versus non-paid, with
Yeah.
the ability for the sacrifice that people want to make to get to that next level, they've got to
Yeah.
now approach it at the level you're doing. And I don't mean as a paid speaker. This is, you'd probably deliver
Just
this
as a
whether it was
speaker.
paid or non-speaker,
Yeah.
but as
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
speaker, stepping it up a notch, not just once, but two or three, with delivering something even that's pre-recorded. You got to put in some real production to it, and a lot of people don't. And there've been plenty of occasions where I haven't. And when I sat through and I watched it, and I started thinking about this type of stuff I'm going to incorporate go forward. It's really interesting to see where people are going with that. And I don't know if you've ever seen Damon John speak. Damon's one of the best speakers I've
Yeah.
ever
Sure.
seen,
Yeah.
and
He's
I've seen
great.
him do it his presentation a few times, including last year, where his whole thing is with backdrop is video for about 30 minutes of his hour-long show.
Yeah.
And that's so key to him. But then he turns off the video and he delivers a presentation that's just as powerful without a
Yeah.
bunch of video. So it's just
Yeah.
really interesting to see how people are using the different mediums to pull together, be really amplifying their message.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a bunch of great speakers that actually do use video very well and incorporate it very well. I'm thinking of who's Trend Hunter, Jeremy Gucci. He uses video very, very well in his presentations. So this is great, Kenneth. You're really making me rethink this. Like, maybe I should incorporate more video into the session. So this is, yeah, it's fun.
Well,
I think at the end of the day,
it jumps the audience's brain, because sometimes,
yeah,
and the reason why I'm asking this is you're also known as somebody with high energy. Yours is more energy, mine's more manic, with a touch of ADHD.
I used to be like that.
Yeah, this is the way my whole life has been, so it's a hot mess. But when you get up and you watch somebody for even, let's say, 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and they're just constant energy, sometimes you just have to break it up. So it's interesting to see how to look at where you interject in. And granted, on stage, carving up a pumpkin's probably going to be something that's more fun to watch than me swimming with sharks, which is
Shark, yeah,
it's
right.
a little. I mean, I haven't really figured out how to incorporate sharks on stage yet. I mean,
Yeah.
bring Katy Perry and those dancing sharks behind me. But
There you go.
but
There you go.
it's just,
see, now you're thinking.
it's really thinking about the type of making that marketing momentum curve, if you will, to borrow that phrase,
Yeah.
to my presentations and everybody's. It's just seeing the different types of things, other than just running up, as I said earlier before we jumped on, other than you just don't want to jump up and be another generic middle-aged white male delivering a PowerPoint. It can become really, really boring when we know you're just out there, humping your agency and that's all you're in it for, is to talk about SEO and everybody's going to run and talk to you after. No, they don't. They want to be
Yeah.
infotained, and
Yeah.
people forget the attainment part, if you will, and that's where I just
Definitely.
applause to you for what you've done
Well,
so far.
thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of speakers, especially if a speaker is trying to is like frustrated with their kind of acceleration and momentum in the speaking business, I always think the first thing to do is look at the speech and measure the number of referrals you're getting,
Mm-hmm.
because every year I work on a new speech. So every September I debut a new speech. Sometimes I do it at a free event. I try something out with just a small intimate audience, see if it works, and if what resonates, and then I kind of grow it from there. But until that speech starts getting my 3 referrals from every event that I speak at, I know it's not a viable speech. And it took me a long time, probably 4 or 5 years, to realize that it's such a simple marker of success. And if I had just focused on that and really thought about how exactly am I going to get to a referable speech, fast, then I would have gotten there a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's just taken a long time. And so, the first thing people should do is hey, just look at the speech, try to understand why it isn't referable. My super secret project, by the way, is called the Referable Speaker.
Oh, nice.
So you can, the whole
If you need
goal
a
is to build
beta,
something that's, hey, there you go. Well, you can sign up for the super secret project actually at the referrablespeaker.com. I don't tell a lot of people
perfect.
about it,
Perfect.
but check it out. Yeah.
What's your favorite presentation topic to deliver? I know they're all babies of
Yeah.
yours, and I'm sure the newest one will be the most
That's
popular
what
one.
it is.
So
The
listen to this
newest
in
one is always
September.
the
Yeah.
most fun. I think, to be honest, the curiosity factor is my favorite speech right now. It's a speech that I debuted in 2018, so it's actually 2 years old, but it's still my most booked speech. Um, and it's for me, it has lots and lots of fun elements, like we get to watch reality TV in the session, which is really cool because I came out of television. We open a mystery box that we order online and bring to the event, and no one knows what's inside, and we give it away to somebody in the audience. So that for me, it has lots of really great interactive pieces that make it so much fun. And it took a long time to really make it work. I started working on it in 2016, and it took 2 years to get it to be a referable speech. But once it did, it's been really, really fun. And then I'm always working on the next speech. So there's a new one called Limitless, which it's got a space in it. It's like limitless, not limitless.
Sure.
Um, it's it's kind of
That's
fun.
great.
So I'm working on that one, but it's not referable yet. It doesn't work right there. I get lots of questions from the audience. It's not exactly, working yet. The stories don't seem to add up somehow. I'm missing something. So I'm working on that one as well.
But it's always around content and delivering content of some sort, right? To make that content.
Oh, there. I mean, most of them, all of them have some sort of marketing angle,
Yeah.
and definitely there's a lot of content focus for me because that's always what I've believed in and been part of, to be honest. The Limitless one is a little bit of a departure for me. It's a little bit more about kind of taking a new approach to thought leadership, and thinking of yourself less as an expert and more as a visionary. So it's a little bit of a departure. Maybe that's one of the reasons, to be honest, Shark, that it's not working. But we'll see.
You'll get there. There's
I
no
hope
there's no
so.
limit.
I'm
So
not going to stop. I'm not going to stop until it's really clear that I just have no place trying this again.
yeah, true. Well, do you ever run into a topic where you feel like it's inappropriate for you to speak on? And I get asked
Mm,
this, or I had this
yeah.
question or conversation one time. I think it was with Ann Hanley, and we were talking about how people need to limit themselves. And I've got a broad background. I've worked for a
Yeah.
publisher. I've worked for an advertiser multiple times. I worked for an agency. Worked in big data. Worked as a consultant. Worked as a solopreneur and entrepreneur before. And so a lot of times you wear all the different hats that you pick up along
Yeah.
the way, as opposed to, I'm never going to say that I'm a social media marketing genius guru on
Right.
Facebook. That's
Right.
just personally, it's probably because of ADHD as well. It's just too limiting for me. But Are there topics that you run into where you think this is too broad, or how do you sort of pull yourself back in so you're not jumping over your own skis?
Yeah. So
What is
I
that
learned.
limit full, you know?
Yeah, I think the limit for me may actually be the opposite of what most people think of as limit. So I don't I'm not good at how to content.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm not very good at teaching people, the
very
five
few
steps,
are.
secrets. Yeah, exactly. So I stay away from the how-to content. If somebody calls me and says, "Hey," in fact, I got a call yesterday asking if I could do a 45-minute session on how to conduct a better Zoom meeting. And they were like, we think you'd be lots of fun, and we watched your video and thought it was awesome. And I was like, hey, look, like I'm not the right guy for that, but I know the guy who is. So I tend to stay away from those. I tend to stay away from the hot topic and trend things. Like I get a lot of calls for, hey, we want someone to do a keynote about the top 5 trends in marketing today. And those are nice, and there are people that do them very well. It's just I don't want to talk about the top 5 trends because the trends are always changing and they're not that interesting to me. So I think for me, nothing as a topic idea is off limits. But I also feel like I need to be able to do the research and investigation and find the right stories to do it justice. So, I tend not to kind of stray from the things that I know work if I'm going to get a referral from it and charge for it. I feel bad if I'm charging for a speech I've never given before. I don't know how good it's going to be.
Yeah, well, it's very
So
difficult for a lot of speakers because they're always asked by event planners, or asked by a lot of event planners, to deliver tactic based things, and it's a hard bridge for a lot of people to go from tactics to strategy, or
yeah,
tactics to vision, and
yeah,
there's just sort of a blessing that keynoters like you have can deliver just as important messages that don't necessarily have to be the 7 most important Instagram hacks that I've heard
exactly.
by. And to be honest, I've done a lot of those from a lead gen standpoint, and sometimes I get as many referrals out of. I did 100 lead gen tactics in a session. I got through
Wow.
100 something slides, and man, it was boom, 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 boom. But unless I had done boom, 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 I couldn't do. It's the only way to really make a lot of the tactic stuff, very energy esque.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
otherwise, I'd rather be doing something on strategy and vision, because
Yeah,
it's can be that much more impactful. Because
for sure.
nobody's gonna. They might write down a few tactics, but they're not going to leave a session on tactics and go apply those 7 Instagram hacks. They'll go listen to you talking about curiosity factor, and it'll make them
Yeah.
think more for the next 6 months. You hope,
Yeah.
but you'll see it do more than a tactic based conversation.
Yeah, I mean at the I have this concept I call the like audience um pyramid, and it's basically the idea is that you have to be able to deliver a speech that really changes and transforms the way people think. You have to hit every tier on the audience hierarchy. So at the top, you have a very small number of CEOs and executives usually in the room, right? But they want how to think stuff. They want stuff
Exactly.
that's challenging the way they're currently doing business and really forcing them to rethink the way the business works. And then below them, you have some VPs and director level people that are managing managers. Those people want to know how other people have solved the problems that they're thinking about, right? Then below that, you have the managers, and they're like, "Hey, we want the kind of the more closer to practical but guidelines and insight on how to do this ourselves." And then at the bottom, the largest majority of people at events are practitioners. These are people who are like, I need to do this when I get back. So here's the deal: when you deliver a how-to session to people at an event, the practitioners love it because they're like, I got the 10 things I need to do when I get
Hmm.
back to the office. This is great, I'm going to do it. But it takes them 6 months to try to implement that stuff.
Exactly.
They never do it the way you thought. Then when they finally call you for business, it's an upsell. They have to sell it through the organization up, right? When you deliver a visionary session where you're challenging the way people think from the top to the bottom, you still have to provide some actionable insight, but it's a different kind of
Exactly.
actionable insight. It's like the first step on your journey needs to be this. So, so the people that are really successful, I think, on the keynote stage are people who know and understand, maybe intuitively. I do it very purposefully. I think to myself, am I hitting everybody on the pyramid? I think other people just know it. They understand that everybody's got to get something out of this, and they happen to hit everybody on the pyramid. But if you can do that, you'll create a bigger, more transformative experience, not just for the practitioners in the audience, but you'll have the CEOs at the back of the room going, man, this guy is good. I'm glad I'm here. Maybe I should get a seat. Because a lot of those C level executives stand in the back. They give you 3.5 minutes to try to determine if they should
Exactly.
stay. And if they don't want to, they leave.
Well, and to your own credit for the speech I saw, or the keynote, the virtual presentation you did, you did a lot of 30,000 foot stuff, but
Yeah.
you delivered as much impact with the marketing momentum curve and loyalty loop, and explaining that graphically in a way that people can understand how to do it from a tactical based timeline, with how you test it on email and then amplify that with paid advertising. And God bless you for pointing that out, because so many content marketers hate paid advertising. I love it. But
I know, man. Look, there's everything has a place.
yeah, but it worked so well, because I got as much tactics out of yours as I did strategy just from watching that presentation, and that
Oh,
was
thanks, man.
that
That's
was
great.
rare to see. A lot of magical keynoters that deliver amazing presentations, but
Oh,
at the
that's so
same
nice,
time,
Shark.
yeah, no, absolutely. So, who is your favorite speaker that you've ever seen? What are the speakers that really impress you on stage today?
Wow. Oh, that's a tough question. I can tell you that very early on in my speaking career, it was people like Jay Bear.
Yeah.
It was people like um, Sally Hogshead, David Meerman Scott. These are the people that really inspired me to rethink the way I was presenting. So they're at the top of the list. I'd have to say they're like I really admire how talented Tony Robbins
Oh my
is.
God, it's the greatest I've
Um,
ever seen.
yeah, and so I'd have to put him at the top of the list.
Yeah, well, and I brought this up with Chris, David Mervyn Scott, who's been on the show, who's a brilliant author, incredible
Great,
influencer.
great
Just
speaker.
came out with his seventh edition of
Yeah,
his
of
best-selling book from
new rules
15
of
years
PR.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's he told me that his defining moment in his career is ultimate achievement was opening for Tony Robbins. I mean,
Yeah.
if that
Yep.
isn't telling you how great of a speaker he is, and he's a transformative. I mean,
Oh,
regardless of what
he's
you think about
amazing.
him or his life or his shows or anything else, he's just a brilliant speaker that knows how to connect with people at a
For
level
sure.
that's
Absolutely.
so different than anybody. So, all right.
For
Anyway,
sure.
Andrew, as a shark fanatic who has spent many a time off the beaches outside Boca where you are, I ask this of all my guests: what is your
Yeah.
favorite kind of shark and why?
Oh man, my favorite it might be a black tip shark.
Yes,
Because they're right here
every year,
in Boca. Yeah, there's like a huge population that come down the coast, and
tens of
and when I
thousands.
say tens of thousands, exactly, and you can see them as the surf is breaking. You can actually see their silhouette, thousands of them
Hmm.
in the surf, and it's a real magical experience. So I would say those have to be my favorite, just because they're the closest shark I've gotten to, I guess.
Yeah, and I have oddly enough a tattoo of a black tip reef shark. A lot of people think
No
they're like
kidding.
little cute funsies, but they're pack hunters like a lot of them, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
just to see the
totally.
swarm of them. You don't play with black tips, and you don't ever play with white tips, because when they start
Yeah,
pulling all together, that much curiosity. That's a
yeah,
curiosity factor.
there you go,
That's
right there.
that's where I'm always got to tie it in. Well,
That's right.
Andrew, it's that special time of the show. Are you ready for the five most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
Yes, can't wait. I've been waiting for this the whole show.
Okay, number one. I'm gonna hope that you've raised the bar too high. Number one, delivering an amazing virtual keynote presentation or being a speaker on stage, session or keynote.
Oh, oh man, I was
And I
definitely in
put the
person. That
emphasis on amazing on the virtual part.
Oh, jeepers. Well, then amazing. I'd rather be amazing than just delivering something. So
Good man.
definitely an amazing virtual event for sure.
Well, you're amazing both, but that, like I
Oh,
said,
thanks.
just adding it, comparing it to most virtual speakers,
That's a good one.
that
Yeah, yeah.
that's really where it's stepping up a notch. So number two,
Thanks.
it's something from your background, a Muppets question.
Oh, good.
Kermit or Miss Piggy?
Definitely Miss Piggy. I used to come into the office every day, and she was sitting right across from me, and I would give Miss Piggy a kiss and then start work.
Nice.
Yeah, she's great.
Nice. A whole another definition of lipstick on a pig. So
Yeah, that's right.
number 3, Al Roker or Hoda Kotb?
Al Roker for sure. I like his glasses. In fact, I like his glasses so much
I
that I
know.
looked him up online and bought his glasses.
Yeah, I haven't seen him wear the orange ones yet, but
No, he
he's got
doesn't
the
wear
blue
them very
ones.
often.
Yeah.
He's got the blue ones. I love those.
And Elton John's other outfits, the way he started dressing now,
Yes.
it's a strange look for him. Number 4, brandscaping or town?
Brandscaping, because it was my first book and it was like a real hard slog, and I'm very proud of that book. It's like your first child. I
Yeah.
think you always have a a soft spot for that one.
Sure. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Oh, biscuits, I think. Yeah, biscuits. Definitely biscuits.
Good man. All right. So, Andrew, where can people find out more about you, where you're speaking, keep up with all you're doing and more?
Oh, they can find me at akadrewdavis.com, or you can just follow me on Instagram. I'm pretty active there, and my handle is @DrewDavisHere.
Is that where you're killing it on one channel?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Trying. I really do enjoy Instagram, so that's where I try to spend my time.
Agreed. Well, Andrew, thank you again so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thank you, Shark.
So there was my conversation with Andrew Davis, a best-selling author and incredibly popular keynote speaker who previously built and sold a digital marketing agency, produced for NBC, and worked for the Muppets. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, so we've heard from a lot of experts in the world lately talking about how to make a virtual conference better. But what about the presentations themselves? For all speakers, this is such a great opportunity to really step up your game and rethink how you think about your presentations. I've seen a lot of people dial it in and not play to the medium correctly, and some like Andrew who use the best of what the medium has to offer. As someone who also helps pick speakers for a conference series, I've seen a lot of people think that what they present on stage works exactly the same or just as well in a virtual presentation, but that's not true most of the time. And the names you often hear about, like Andrew, like Jay Bayer, Brian Fanzo, and Terry Brock, great speakers who've been on previous shows. A lot of these true professionals understand how to turn it up a serious notch. Now, one thing I get is that big keynotes are seeing fees drop, and there's so many free note opportunities with the webinars and the virtual summits. I mean, it's easy for some people to think that you won't work as hard on this virtual event or that one for the value. However, understand that the way that you step it up today and continue to reinvent yourself could help you really stand out in a very crowded field already. I love that Andrew's measuring stick, if you will, on speeches is how many referrals he gets for other events. People like him that continue to give better than we expected presentations are the ones succeeding and getting referrals. Maybe it's not as many as they would have gotten in person, but they're still getting referrals even in virtual summits, just like any businesses that continue to need to innovate and succeed and grow. Second, one thing that would really help these speakers do better, though, is to actually pay more of them and then expect more. Major keynoters like Andrew get paid well, and they should, and that helps them have the ability to be able to spend weeks filming something for a virtual conference and someone else editing it. A normal session presentation for many speakers is often free, and that doesn't afford those speakers oftentimes the ability to produce something of that serious quality. And I'm not talking about equal pay by any stretch, not calling for that. I just wish that conferences would pull out a little more of their profits and make a real investment in their audience. You'll find that a lot of those other speakers, many friends of mine, will step it up quite a few notches for a little bit of pay. Third, I don't care if you speak a couple of times a year, a few dozen times a year like I do, or as many times as speakers like Andrew do. In-person events on so many levels always just trumps digital. I don't care about holograms or super cool web conferencing platforms or anything else like that. They're all improving, and we can continue to expect that and demand it. But the value that someone gets when interacting with people, with ways we learn in person or the ways that we're inspired, that's just not done nearly as well in a virtual presentation. And I too am so ready just to get back to in-person events. Got a question or need a great speaker? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Whether it's in person or virtually, continue to take a further look at what you're doing, what you produce, and step it up. Always continue to innovate, and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.